What is up, everyone, and welcome to some more F1 23 My Team Career Mode, and we're here for round number 20, season 5 of our Jaguar Racing career. And we're going to be at the Brazilian Grand Prix this time, but last time out we were in Mexico City, and that was a pretty pivotal race for our entire season, really, because if I did well there, I was pretty determined that I was going to win the World Championship in a few races' time. Coming off the back of that, and we ended up getting a P4 finish, which was pretty much exactly what I was hoping for. I was thinking maybe I could have gone a little bit better, maybe finished on the podium, but in any case, I think it's teed us up very nicely for a strong finish in these last 4 races in the championship, and mathematically speaking, we could wrap the championship up as early as Portugal now, I believe. I don't think we're quite far enough ahead in the championship to win it here in Brazil. We would need to have 78 points ahead of Lando Norris, and at the moment we're only 41 points ahead of him. I think we're about to see 40 points. We're 40 points ahead of him, and we can't score 38 points as an individual on a race weekend. Maximum we can score here on the sprint weekend is, oh, actually it's a sprint weekend as well, so it would have to be 86 points. No, it would have to be 78. But yeah, maximum we can score here is 34. And the number we would need is 38 more than Lando Norris. So it's mathematically impossible to win it this weekend, but it is mathematically possible to win it next weekend. We'd only have to be leading the championship by 52 points after Portugal. So yeah, look out for that one, because that seems like it could be a reality, especially when you consider that Brazil is one of my strongest tracks on the calendar at the moment, I would say. We've done quite well here in our second, third and fourth seasons, I believe. We got wins here. I could be wrong about that with the third season, but definitely in the second and fourth seasons we got a victory here. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to do a similar thing here today. However, historically I've always struggled in the sprint here. I don't know what it is. I think it's running on the soft tyres. Just doesn't seem to suit me down to the ground, and as a result I kind of lose steam towards the back end of the sprint and get overtaken by usually 1 or 2 cars. I think I've finished second in the sprint on like 3 different occasions where I've been overtaken shortly before the end of the sprint. So we will see how things unfold this weekend. But yeah, it's really all just about seeing if I can finish ahead of Lando Norris, and if I could do that, it's basically gonna put me almost out of sight in the championship, I would say. With 4 races to go, having a lead of 40 points is pretty massive. Now, of course, it can be overturned. For those of you who are long-time viewers of the channel, you may remember season 6, I believe it was, of my career mode last year. We had a 50-point deficit to Alex Albon with 4 races to go, and somehow I managed to actually overturn that within not 4, but 3 races to win the championship. I basically was out of sight in the championship by the time that we got to the final race of the season. I was already, like 20-something points ahead, despite the fact I was 50 points down just a few races prior to that. And it was because Albon had 4 DNFs in the final 4 races of the season. So yeah, it was pretty crazy. If you've watched it, maybe comment down below saying you remember it or something like that. But anyway, we find ourselves in qualifying, and our first lap was a 107.1, which in itself was actually pretty good. It was good enough for P3. But then we go ahead and we absolutely smash that time, improved by almost 0.6 of a second. And it's a 106.5 for us in the end here, which is good enough, unsurprisingly, for P1, and quite far ahead of the competition. At a track where usually the times are fairly competitive, we've absolutely blitzed it. 0.5 of a second ahead of Lando Norris there, who was the closest driver. By comparison, going back another 0.5, you find yourself all the way down at P16, where Yuki Tsunoda lies. He's made it through, but knocked out here is Fittipaldi, Hulkenberg, Joe, Sargent, Stroll and De Vries. No real surprises there, I would say. All of these guys are fairly, they're not in the fastest machinery, and generally speaking, they're kind of lower rated perhaps than some of the other drivers in the field, and as a result, yeah, knocked out there. But Q2 is always an interesting one, because this is the one where you always see a few drivers who, probably do have the potential to get through to Q3, I would say, kind of struggle a little bit. On a used set of tyres, I do a 106.5 here, and this is kind of when I knew I was almost like an odds-on favourite to get pole position unless something really drastic happened. I was pretty optimistic that pole was going to be in my hands by the end of the weekend. Now, in Q2 on a fresh set of soft compound tyres, I actually didn't improve. I did set the fastest middle sector, but on the whole I went 0.02 of a second slower than my lap on the used soft compound tyres. So at that point I was like, oh no, maybe I'm washed, maybe I've peaked too soon. I was still 0.4 ahead of Piastri in P2, so I wasn't that concerned. But yeah, Doohan making it through there, pretty happy with that. Norris making it through in P6, so no easy ride for us here this weekend. But Ocon, Leclerc, Verstappen, Albon, Sainz and Gasly knocked out here. Albon for me is the big one, right? Because he possesses the potential to kind of usurp us in the Constructors' Championship with Mercedes. Him and Norris, you know, obviously both delivering pretty strong seasons. Albon tailing off quite dramatically to make it possible for us to get back in the fight here. And, well, we could really use a strong result from Jack Doohan this weekend to hopefully put us in the Constructors' Championship fight as well, because we lost a bit of ground in Mexico. It wasn't a great race for us as a team, and yeah, I will hope that we can hopefully get back in that fight a little bit here today in Brazil. It was a 106.8 on our first flying lap, and well, let's just say I delivered an absolute barnstormer of a lap on my fresh soft compound tyre run. You can see here we're improving by almost 0.7 over that 106.8 I set beforehand. You can see Doohan there, currently in P2, so he's going to be P3 probably after I cross the line. But with a 106.7, we're going to absolutely blitz that. It's a 106.1, and of course that's good enough for pole position. Was it ever in doubt? I've looked so dominant over the course of this qualifying session.
With qualifying finished, it's time to remind ourselves of our top three: Robinson, Russell and Jack Doohan. Goodbye for now then, but we are really just getting started. Make sure you join us again for Lights Out tomorrow.
Well, it's P1 for myself and P3 for Doohan, so I would call that a successful qualifying for the team. We've out-qualified Norris, which is always good as well. Hopefully Doohan will be able to keep him behind. And for my sake, I want to beat Russell to make sure that we can get ahead of Red Bull in the Constructors' fight as well. So, it's going to be an interesting Grand Prix. Let's see what we can do as we get into the sprint.
So it is all about speed in today's sprint. Not very many laps and no chance to get ahead on strategy. Who here today has the raw skill to take them to the top? Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's sprint. Robinson lines up on pole position, just ahead of George Russell, who starts this event from P2. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Doohan, Norris, Oscar Piastri, Hauger, Perez, Liam Lawson, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Ocon, Leclerc, Verstappen, Albon, Sainz, Gasly, Fittipaldi, Hulkenberg, Joe, Sargent, Stroll, and Nick de Vries rounds off the grid. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We will soon find out.
Nothing for Alex Jakes to say on the introduction to the race here. I can't tell if that's Liam Lawson or Enzo Fittipaldi in the Williams there, but obviously Fittipaldi, hometown hero, qualifying down in P17 this time, so we'll see if he can make his way through the field, maybe grab some points, maybe grab a first podium in Formula 1, who knows? That would be a pretty remarkable result for him, all things considered. But yeah, optimistic that we can hopefully lead from lights to flag here in the sprint and get a good result. But obviously, like I've said, we have those issues that we've faced in seasons gone by. Will they plague us again here today in the sprint in Brazil? Will I ever win here? I was honestly, based off the fact that I know the softs usually go off in the sprint around here, I was really umming and ahhing about whether I should go on a set of mediums. But in the end, everyone else was on the softs. I figured, worst case scenario, their tyres are going to go off as well. So yeah, we should be able to hold them off. All that I really want here more than anything in the world is just for Norris to not beat me, because if we can finish ahead of Norris, then I know that we can maintain this championship lead to the end of the season. And like I said, if by some miracle we actually manage to extend our lead over him by, what is it, 11 points over the next couple of races, then that can put the championship in our hands with a couple races to go, and we can turn our attention very much to the Constructors' Championship fight. But we will see what we can do as the lights come on and the lights go out, and we've had a good getaway compared to George Russell. Norris already jumping Doohan off the start. Doohan, his biggest weakness right now, I would say, is definitely his starts. When he gets a good qualifying position, you just see him going backwards very quickly off of the line. And once again, Norris has made his way ahead of Doohan up into P3. So, it's the three biggest championship contenders, three people who are still mathematically in the championship fight. I think Piastri and Perez are still in the championship fight as well, but I could be wrong about that. But yeah, definitely myself, Russell and Norris are still involved. And, you know, I am leading quite comfortably. Norris is a bit ahead of George Russell, but, you know, after a difficult run of form for Norris, he's not absolutely guaranteed to finish P2 in the championship anymore. It could still be George Russell. So we will see how those two kind of shake themselves out as well. And in the meantime, all I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to break away as quickly as I can, hold on to P1 for the entirety of the sprint, and yeah, hopefully not look back in the race either. If I can get the double victory here this weekend, that'd be very sweet. Maximum gambit of 34 points would be absolutely ideal here, although I rarely ever get the fastest lap, just because of you know, the nature of what getting fastest lap would have to entail. So yeah, we've broken away from George Russell a decent amount, but not a massively significant amount here. So yeah, I think it'll be quite difficult to break away from his DRS range. And indeed, you can see as we make our way onto lap 4 that I haven't managed to do it. So I wouldn't be surprised if we come under a bit of pressure from him as soon as now, as he goes up the inside, makes his way through up into P1, and unfortunately we just couldn't quite fight it back around the outside going into the S's. So as Carlos Sainz DNFs from the session, we're going to have to try and fight him back. We will get the DRS now for this next DRS zone. We're going to dummy him to the inside, move to the outside. It allows us to brake a bit later than him, squeeze him to the inside. I think there's a tiny bit of contact there, but it should be okay. And yeah, we make our way back up into P1. However, George Russell not going to take it lying down. Whilst I might be faster than these guys through the middle sector, this is around the time in the race where my tyres were starting to feel like they were going off a little bit. So this time, George Russell round the outside with that DRS. We're going to try and stay with him as best we can. However, George Russell taking P1 off the hands of us for the time being. And now we're going to have to try and get him back through the DRS zone once again. We did it one time. Can we do it 2 times? We dummy him to the inside. We move to the outside. We're a bit further back this time, but we get on the brakes. He's going to fight it a little bit harder this time, I think. Around the outside, we've moved back into P1. So, let's see. Can it be third time's the charm for George Russell as we make our way through the first of the 2 DRS zones once again? Will George Russell be able to overtake us here, as there is a DNF going on behind? I'm not sure who that's for, but we'll see in a second. George Russell makes his way up past me as Liam Lawson is the one who's retiring from the sprint on this occasion. Can we get him back, or will it be third time lucky for George Russell? Will he finally take the lead of the sprint, or will we be able to re-overtake him? It seems like we're a bit further back this time, and unfortunately as we get to the braking zone there was just no route for us to get through past George Russell, so we're going to have to just try and stay with him. Otherwise we could end up being a bit of a sitting duck here to the cars behind, and the last thing I want is to be overtaken by the likes of Norris, by the likes of Doohan, and many other drivers behind. But we will see how this unfolds. You can see I have managed to stay with Russell pretty nicely as we made our way onto lap 9 now, and I might just be close enough to go for a bit of an opportunistic move up the inside. You know, we do make the corner, it's fair game. He tries to fight us back, but he can't quite do it, and that is me up into P1. George Russell eliminated down into P2, and we are going to now try and hold on to this for the last 3 laps of the race. However, we make our way onto the following lap, lap 10. You can see George Russell is still right on our gearbox. I wouldn't be surprised if he makes this overtake up into P1 once again, and we are fighting tooth and nail. This is incredible racing between myself and George Russell. It is a real ding-dong battle. No you, no you. We all want the DRS because that's the crucial thing here, and I'm the one that's going to get it going into this technical section. If I can make the overtake on George Russell here, which I have the overspeed in dregs, I would not be surprised if we now are able to hold on to this for the last couple of laps of the race. But George Russell, you know, he's been an intense contender, and in fact he's going to try and get up the inside of me going through this corner. We have seen overtakes there before, but unfortunately it only really works when one car has a significant advantage over the other, and on this occasion me and George Russell fairly evenly matched. It was always going to go in my direction, but the race is not too far away from the end now, so all we have to do is just try and hold on to this for the last lap, and we will be the victor of the sprint here in Brazil. For the first time in my Formula 1 career, I will win the Brazilian sprint. I've won the Grand Prix many times, but never the sprint. So we will see. Will George Russell be close enough to mount a challenge? It certainly looks like it, doesn't it? We're not even in the DRS zone yet, and he's already almost 3 tenths behind me. So George Russell, surely he's going to go for an overtake with DRS here. Up the inside, once again, on the run to the center S's. There goes George Russell. He moves into P1. So we're going to have to do what we've done on 3 separate occasions so far in this race and try and go for another overtake on George Russell with the DRS. We're burning all the battery this time. There's absolutely no reason to hold on to it, but not quite close enough to make the move on George Russell on this occasion. So now we're going to have to try and stay with him through the tight technical section of Sector 2 and see if we can get him in the final DRS zone. However, Lando Norris is actually looking very close to me right now. At one point there, he was only 1/10 off of me, but we've managed to create a little bit more breathing room to him all of a sudden now. However, George Russell still, we're very, very close to him here. Can we make the overtake on George Russell, or is it going to be another sprint victory that slips through my fingers here? As we make our way through the technical section, you can see my tyres really struggling to grip up through these corners, and George Russell just seemingly getting way more traction than I am. So as we come through the final corner here, or the final true corner, the final braking zone certainly, George Russell is going to be 6-7 tenths ahead, burning all the battery, but it's not going to make a difference. Lando Norris might catch me yet as we come on the run to the line. The gap was only 2 tenths, but we do manage to hold on to P2. I'll allow myself a little bit of a celebration because I did keep Lando Norris behind, but certainly I would have rather got the victory there. In any case, I'm happy with P2. We beat Lando Norris, but the job's not done. We've still got a race to win tomorrow, and we'll see if we can get it then.
Let's see what effect this result has had on the drivers' standings. Robinson increases their championship lead. Well, that wraps up sprint. All that remains is the main event. We'll be live and uninterrupted for the Grand Prix tomorrow, so make sure you join us then. Formula 1 returns to Interlagos once again with the stage set for what promises to be another classic Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Sebastian Vettel famously clinched his 3rd championship here in 2012, and in 2016, Max Verstappen treated us all to one of the finest wet weather drives of all time. We're racing then at Interlagos, a historic 2.7-mile circuit and one of the few anti-clockwise tracks on the calendar. 15 corners in total, 9 to the left and 6 to the right, with a technical middle section opening up to a flat-out Sector 3 that gives us our best passing opportunity down into Turn 1. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. What a qualifying yesterday for George Russell. He'll start today's race from pole position, and Robinson completes the front row. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Norris, Doohan, Oscar Piastri, Perez, Hauger, Leclerc, Albon, Tsunoda, Verstappen, Ocon, Magnussen, Gasly, Fittipaldi, Sargent, Joe, Stroll, De Vries, Hulkenberg, Liam Lawson, and Carlos Sainz will start from the back of the grid. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. Anthony Davidson is alongside me as usual for the race today. Let's talk about Robinson. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
It's been a really solid year so far. There have been some incredible standout performances, but what's really impressed me has been the consistency. With this kind of form, I'm expecting another great race today.
I've had a few people ask me, and I've never really thought about it that much since I initially changed it, but some people ask me why I go for Alex Jakes as the primary commentator instead of David Croft, and I don't know, it always feels a bit more natural to me. I guess because I've spent a number of years watching Formula 2 and Formula 3 as well, and just generally, I've always really enjoyed having Alex Jakes as a commentator in those series, and, I've seen the sort of highlights of him doing F1 as well. I've always thought he was pretty good. So, yeah, let me know. Which one do you prefer? Do you prefer David Croft or do you prefer Alex Jakes? Because those are the two options you get as an English racer. I don't know if it's different in other countries. Maybe you come from a country and there's a different commentary option. I'm not sure how that works, but here in the English version of the game, I know we only get those two. So yeah, we will see if we can do a professional job here in the Grand Prix now as well. We want to beat Lando Norris. That's the goal here. But ideally, I want to beat George Russell as well. For my own selfish reasons, I've got to get past Lando Norris, or keep ahead of Lando Norris, I should say. And for the constructors, we have to try and beat Russell. So we'll see what we can do as the lights come on. And the lights go out, and we've had a solid getaway compared to George Russell. I was a bit worried starting on the mediums when everyone else is on the softs, but we've had a very good start, all things considered. However, so has Lando Norris, and he's jumped George Russell. George Russell going all the way from pole to P3 on the opening corner. Lando Norris making his way up into P2. Is it just going to be a ding-dong battle between the two title rivals? Lando Norris, he needs this victory to hold on to any hope of winning the championship. Try and close the gap. I've already outscored him by 2 points this weekend, so he's going to need a victory here as he goes up the inside. Can he make the move? No. Once again, like I said, that's more reserved for people who have a very clear advantage over the other driver. Maybe someone's struggling with grip and the other one's on fresh tyres. That's the kind of time when you can make that kind of move work, but it's not going to work for Lando Norris on this occasion. So yeah, it's us holding on to P1 for the time being. But yeah, Lando Norris, if he beats me here today and gets fastest lap, he'll close the gap to 34 points, which I would say is an achievable goal to try and catch me with 3 races to go. You know, 11 points per race, maybe 12 in one race as well. That's not out of the realm of possibility for Lando Norris. But if I beat him here today, then the gap is going to be potentially as high as 50. What would it be? 52 points, I think? No, that's wrong. 50 points. It's 50 points. If I get fastest lap and the win and he gets P2, it will be a 50-point advantage over Lando Norris, which sounds a lot less likely to be overturned. So, yeah, as long as we can withstand some early pressure from Lando Norris, I think we've got this one in the bag, because it's going to be these early laps that Lando Norris is going to really have an opportunity to try and get past us. Like now, for example, as we get to the end of the DRS zone, he, of course, had DRS on this lap. He's going to try and hold on up the inside of me, but we closed the door, and as a result we managed to keep him behind for now. But as we make our way towards the end of lap 4, start of lap 5, is Lando Norris going to go for a bit of a move here? I think we might come under a bit of pressure from him once again. He makes his way to the inside. Is he close enough to commit to the move? Not quite, I don't think. He couldn't get back on the racing line because I was still alongside him, and as a result we go up the inside through the center S to stay ahead of him. But is he going to try and fight me back through this next DRS zone? Well, let's see. As we're looking behind us, Lando Norris with the DRS is going to pull to the inside. We're going to be alongside one another. Who's going to be ahead as we go through the corner? We switch to the outside camera, and you can see I've held on around the outside of him, but he's stayed fully with me through this corner, and then by the time we get to the next fast right-hander, Lando Norris has taken the lead of the Brazilian Grand Prix, but we are right on his gearbox. Can we dive up the inside at the next corner? Yes, we can. We make our way past Lando Norris and through and in to P1 once again here on lap 5, and that might be the early pressure withstood now. As you can see, we make our way onto lap 9. We have broken out of DRS range to Lando Norris, and those soft tyres are only going to go off a lot quicker than my medium tyres. I'm pitting around the same lap time as these guys, going on to hards, they're going on to mediums. That might be a difficult stint for me as well, because the mediums take a bit longer to go off, but still, the hards will wear out at a much slower rate compared to the mediums. So I think we have a real opportunity. If we can stay ahead, out of DRS range of Lando Norris, I think we can keep hold of this lead very comfortably and hopefully pull away in the Brazilian Grand Prix. We will see whether Lando Norris has any answer for our pace on these medium tyres now. I don't think he does, unfortunately. Seems a bit faster in the straights, but through that technical second sector, the medium tyres are king now. The soft tyres are well and truly gone. They've had their day. But he's still going to have to do another 5 laps on them. So I am really optimistic about our chances, about our pace here, and all we have to do is just keep him behind for a few more laps. So we make our way now onto the end of lap 14. We're going to be starting lap 15 soon, and I am still just about staying ahead of Lando Norris, out of range for that DRS, and all that's going to do is invite more pressure from the cars behind, from George Russell, from Lando Norris's former teammate Oscar Piastri, from my teammate Jack Doohan, who is also Oscar Piastri's former teammate. Things get very confusing when you've been in Formula 1 for 5 years. You know, lots of movement. It's hard to believe that we've had 4 different drivers drive for Jaguar Racing now, and we may be about to see a 5th in the next season, depending on whether we win the Constructors' Championship or not. That is the goal I've set for the team. If we win the Constructors, Jack Doohan gets to stay. If we lose the Constructors, then Jack Doohan, it's off you pop, I'm afraid, because, I mean, I'm doing everything I can. If I win here today, this will be my 7th Grand Prix victory of the season. And we come into the pit lane. We're one of the first cars. Actually, we are the first car to come into the pit lane. So this gives us a real opportunity in this undercut meta I'm always talking about. You probably, if you're watching this series consistently, you are thinking to yourself, for goodness sake, stop talking about the undercut meta. But I will never stop talking about the undercut meta. It's so powerful, and you're about to see it now in full effect as well, I imagine. Lando Norris was 1.2 seconds behind us before the pit stop phase. So we will see, first of all, when's he going to pit? Because I would have assumed it would have been that lap as well. Some of the first soft compound runners did come in on that lap, but evidently not all of them. So we will see when Lando Norris is going to come into the pits. Meanwhile, you can see I'm also closing down Carlos Sainz, who I believe had a DNF in the previous race, which is why he's so far down here. And you can see there are a few cars coming into the pit lane here, including Lando Norris. Here he is. He's in the pit lane. What's the gap going to be to the Mercedes driver when he exits the pit lane? We'll see, as we're trying to close down his former teammate Carlos Sainz, retiring at the end of the season. But let's see, what's that gap to Norris? Is Piastri potentially going to pull off an undercut on Lando Norris? Not quite, but it's gone from 1.2 seconds to 3 seconds. I caught him by 2 seconds, or I outpaced him by 2 seconds on my outlap there when I was still warming up the hard compound tyres. That's how powerful the undercut is here as we dive up the inside of Carlos Sainz. We can't afford to get stuck behind him and lose touch to Lando Norris. That's how I've won Brazilian Grand Prix before, because other drivers who I've been racing with are unable to overtake cars who've yet to pit. On this occasion, there will be no such problem for me as we make our way through a number of other cars, including George Russell, who's now come into the pits. And, well, Piastri, he's had a 2-lap undercut opportunity on George Russell, and if you look at the minimap, you can see he has taken full advantage of it. So it's now Oscar Piastri running in net P3, Lando Norris in net P2, and myself about to take P1 as Yuki Tsunoda is going to be coming into the pits here, leading a Formula 1 race, the Alfa Romeo driver from Japan, but ultimately it was just simply because he'd yet to pit. So it will be myself in P1, Norris P2, Piastri P3, but Russell setting the fastest lap there. Will he try and come back through the field a little bit now, try and get back ahead of Piastri and Norris? We will see what kind of pace he has as we make our way towards the end of lap 21. We have a DRS fault, as Lando Norris is catching us a little bit. He's caught us by maybe a second since that pit stop phase, so we'll see if he has the pace in the medium tyres to go all the way. Because if he gets past us now with that DRS failure, if we can't get it working again, there is a very strong chance that we won't be able to get back ahead of Lando Norris. We will need to stay ahead of him. And as we make our way towards the end of lap 25, you can see that I have managed to maintain the gap to Lando Norris a little bit, so we don't have to worry about that one too much. And yeah, we are going to be leading quite comfortably in P1. 2.5 seconds is the gap behind. George Russell, though, he's made his way past Oscar Piastri, and he's just looking like he might try and get past Lando Norris as well. He's very close, still holding that fastest lap. Jack Doohan, meanwhile, he wants to take P4 off of his compatriot as George Russell does move into P2. So that means that right now we'll be outscoring Lando Norris by 10 points here instead of the 7 or 8 that I was expecting. But yeah, Jack Doohan, if he can get past Oscar Piastri, that would be great for our chances in the Constructors' Championship. It would mean that we would be outscoring both Red Bull and Mercedes by a fair amount. The Red Bull of Sergio Perez down in P8, I believe, and Albon currently running outside of the points. So this is a real opportunity for us to catch up to our closest rivals in the Constructors, as there is a yellow flag behind, and we're going to see what that's for in a second. We're riding with George Russell, who's made his way into P2, and coming through the center S's, he just absolutely bins it. He spins it, and he has potentially bottled his chance of staying in the championship fight. He might have bottled Red Bull's chance of staying in the Constructors' Championship fight as well. George Russell, you've got no idea how pivotal a mistake that was. That was a bigger mistake than Singapore 2023 in real life for George Russell, and he will be ruining that one for a very long time. But maybe I will be ruining it as well, because in doing that, George Russell has brought out a full course safety car, which means that we are going to be having to try and catch up with the safety car and keep Lando Norris behind once the safety car comes in at the end of this lap, lap 29. But you can see, if you look down in the bottom right, that triangle with an exclamation mark in it is still there, meaning that my DRS is still offline. So if Lando Norris has enough pace in these medium tyres, has he saved enough going into the final 7 laps of this race to get back past me? If he can overtake me, then Lando Norris will maybe just be offered a bit of a lifeline in this championship. This is the most critical part of the track now. If he can close me down on the run down into turn 4, then maybe there exists a chance of him staying ahead of me. But unfortunately, Lando Norris not quite close enough on this occasion. Who's got more life in their tyres? We're going to find out on this restart lap, lap 30. Will it be myself? Will it be Lando Norris? Who is going to be closest to who on the exit of the final corner here, because that is going to mean so much. Obviously no DRS until lap 32, so if I can break away from Lando Norris's DRS range by lap 32, then we should be clear and dry for the victory here in Brazil. And, well, it may be even more drastic than that, because as we come through what is effectively the final corner, you can see I'm already almost out of Norris's DRS range. We fast forward 1 lap, and I'm 1.5 seconds ahead of Lando Norris. So ultimately, he just did not have the pace to answer to me here today, and I think that we're going to walk away with a victory here. But there's still 5 laps left to go, and don't forget, I have not had a mechanical failure yet this season. We have had 19 races, including, how many sprints would it be? We had, Azerbaijan, Austria, Belgium, Qatar, 4 sprints, 19 Grand Prix, no DNFs so far. Surely at some point that trend has to change. I know we've got maxed out reliability, but it didn't stop us from having lots of failures in the past. In F1 22, we had a maxed out reliability department, durability department, and we had 7 failures in one season. So that just goes to show how little reliability really means in this game. I think it's very much an EA type thing, where it just basically punishes you if you're doing too well in terms of reliability and things like that. And at no point in the season have I been doing too well. So we make our way onto lap 36, and this is Oscar Piastri putting some pressure on his former teammate Lando Norris up the inside into turn 4. Can he make the overtake up into P2? Yes, he can. This could be absolutely critical for the championship if he can hold on to that. Not too dissimilar, if you remember, to Carlos Sainz doing that to to Lando Norris in the previous season. In Season 4, which ultimately Norris did go on to win that championship, but this time Oscar Piastri might have just cost his former teammate a chance at winning the championship here. It may be even more pivotal than it was last season when Carlos Sainz overtook his former teammate Lando Norris. But for us, it could mean everything as we're going to round the final corner to win here in Brazil, and that has maybe just put one hand on the trophy for us. Lando Norris is going to have to settle for P3 here, and this could be an absolutely massive result in terms of the championship. Fittipaldi gets driver of the day at his home race. I'm sure he'll be very happy about that, but it is P1 for us.
We've witnessed some great battles around the historic curves of Interlagos today, and they've taken a fantastic win. Well, what a thrilling end to an incredible Grand Prix weekend. Our top 3 finishers should be incredibly happy with what they were able to achieve out there today.
So, in the end, it was me, P1, Piastri, P2, and Norris, P3. And that will extend my championship lead to 50 points. With just 3 races to go, you have no idea how crucial that could be for us. We'll see how the next 3 races go, because if I have saved all my DNFs for the end of the season, then things could still change. But I am now incredibly optimistic about our chances of winning this championship. Surely we can't let this one slip away like we did last year.
Robinson increases their championship lead. So then, it's time to see how this result affects the Drivers' Championship. So let's discuss, Ant. Who would you say is a contender for your driver of the day?
I have to give it to Robinson.
It's time to see how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship. The owner-drivers team moved to the top of the table. Well, what an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who's joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
Well, I am 51 points ahead in the Drivers' Championship, so that is cause for celebration. However, it is super tight at the top of the table. There is 5 points separating the top 3 teams in the Constructors' Championship, and that could easily chop and change over the course of the next few races. I think McLaren are probably not going to get involved in that. Unfortunately, Kevin Magnussen just not really had the kind of season that he would have needed to get the championship for McLaren in the Constructors' fight. Oscar Piastri obviously had a very strong season. He's had a couple wins, but ultimately it doesn't seem like it's going to be enough for the Australian driver to really get involved. I think he may be mathematically out of the fight, and I think George Russell may be mathematically out of the fight as a result of absolutely bottling it here in Brazil. Very disappointing for him, but ultimately, you know, that's what happens. This championship rewards consistency. 23 races. It's not a sprint. It's very much an endurance championship, and yeah, we have to make sure that we manage to maintain that consistency over the course of a whole season. You know, if you think about, if you've been watching this season from the beginning, and if you haven't, I will be posting a recap at the end of the season so you can see what you missed early on in the season. But if you've been watching this season from the very beginning, then you will remember we had an absolutely shocking start to this season. We got a P5 in Bahrain, which wasn't terrible, but then we only managed to score 1 point in Saudi Arabia. We got a podium in Australia, which was probably the highlight of the first 5 races of the season for us. But then, you know, Baku, again, we only got 10th in the Grand Prix. We didn't score any points in the sprint. And then in China, obviously, we finished outside of the points as well. We finished P12 there, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, we had a really poor run of form at the beginning of the season. I was thinking to myself, man, this is potentially already championship over for me, as we were really, you know, we were a long way off Lando Norris and the drivers at the top of the championship, some 40-50 points at that stage or something like that. But then, you know, we managed to turn it around very, very quickly. We got wins in Monaco, in Canada, in Silverstone, in Belgium. There was one more that we got in that period as well. I can't even remember where it was anymore. That's how many wins we've had. Hungary. It was Hungary, wasn't it? We got it in Britain, we got it in Hungary, and we got it in Belgium. So yeah, we got 5 wins in the space of 8 races, which was pretty amazing, all things considered. And yeah, I mean, it put us firmly back on track to win the championship. I think we've been leading basically ever since that point, and I'm not planning on looking back now. 51-point advantage in the championship, 1 point advantage over our closest rivals in the Constructors' fight. So Jack Doohan, he's really going to have to bring his game to a new level in these last 3 races, but I believe he can do it if he wants to stay in that seat. However, that is going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed, please make sure you like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.